Welcome back from break, everyone. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Luncheon keynote speaker, Michael Schiffer, who's the Assistant Administrator of the Bureau for Asia at the U.S. Agency for International Development. From 2012 to 2022, Mr. Schiffer was a senior advisor and counselor on the Democratic staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. From 2009 to 2012, he served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia in the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Asian and Pacific Security Affairs. Before joining the Department of Defense, he was a program officer at the Stanley Foundation, responsible for the Foundation's Asia programs, as well as a range of other U.S. national and global security issues. And in 2004-2005, Mr. Schiffer was a Council on Foreign Relations Hitachi International Affairs Fellow in Japan. From 1995 to 2004, he worked on the staff of U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, including as her Senior National Security Advisor and Legislative Director. It's a real pleasure to have Mr. Schiffer with us here today. Michael, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Really pleased to be able to join you all here this afternoon and share with you some thoughts about USAID's approach to development diplomacy in this new era of strategic competition. Our discussion today is really timely. 2 years ago, as many of you know, the Biden-Harris administration unveiled its Indo-Pacific strategy, which lays out America's vision for a region that is free, open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient. And while the Indo-Pacific strategy speaks to the animating vision for our policy and engagement in that region, it also speaks to the animating spirit for our foreign policy and our national security more broadly, contributing to global goods, contributing to global architecture, and contributing to a global commons that supports an open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient world. In these 2 short years, we have made tangible strides in working with our partners in the Indo-Pacific. We've trained more than 10,000 human rights defenders. We've improved digital connectivity in hard-to-reach communities. And we've reduced more than 18 million tons of greenhouse gases in the region, the equivalent of more than 4 million cars off the road for a year. I can go on and bore you all to death with our statistical laundry list of progress. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of the flavor of the sort of work we're doing and the progress that we're making. That said, whenever I speak to Congress, to our partners, to other stakeholders, I'm constantly met with questions about the role that the PRC plays in our development diplomacy, whether its model poses challenges, whether we view the PRC as a strategic competitor, and how the PRC's engagement in the Global South with the global majority intersects with our efforts to support sustainable development. I'm not here to talk at length about the PRC, however. I'm here today to talk about the transformative potential of our open model as we seek to support positive development partnerships. That said, we are clear-eyed about the strategic context in which we operate and the role that the People's Republic of China, animated by Xi Jinping's global ambitions, plays in the Global South for the global majority and around the world. It is a simple fact that what the PRC does and PRC behavior has an increasing impact on sustainable global development. As a foreign policy agency and a member of the National Security Council, USAID's approach to development, if it is to be successful, must align with our diplomacy and our defense, the 3 Ds for U.S. foreign and national security policy. That our development diplomacy aligns with our broader national security goals, however, does not mean that we view it as merely transactional or instrumental. As such, we believe that what defines our work, how it's received, and what it means for our partners must begin with our own story and our own value proposition. It is, above all, not about what the PRC does. It is about what the United States can offer. It is about our relationships with our partners. It is about those relationships built on respect and the shared priorities that we together have to support an open and inclusive international order. USAID's development model is, by design, a demonstration of U.S. values and how those values contribute to fostering resilience, prosperity, sovereignty, and security. With shared values and a people-centric decision-making process, we were able to build greater trust. And with greater trust comes greater cooperation and investment, which in turn charts a mutually beneficial course towards sustainable development and towards security and prosperity for all. Most importantly, we believe in meeting our partners where they are and helping them to advance their own aspirations and their own goals for sustainable growth and development and to be able to deliver tangible results. Take the Republic of Korea. In the aftermath of the Korean War and well into the 1960s, food and income were scarce in South Korea, with that country's economy on par with some of the most economically impoverished countries in the world today. Prospects for a brighter, more prosperous future, let alone for BTS and K-pop, required hard work and a plan. And I think many of you know this story, USAID and other development partners stepped in to support the Republic of Korea in pursuing its vision for how to build their own country. USAID supported the people of South Korea as they built up their agricultural sector, their health system, their educational institutions, and their major industries, all engines that drove development. And we supported the Republic of Korea as it integrated with the global economy to help facilitate its rapid growth. Our development work with the Republic of Korea was laser focused on alleviating suffering, supporting sustainable market-based solutions, and on shared ideals, all building the foundations for that country's long-term growth, security, and resilience. I offer this story to illustrate the success of how a genuine development partnership, in this case with the Republic of Korea, can be central to advancing both U.S. interests in building a strong and resilient international community, and also meet the priorities of our partners. USAID's development practices elevate inclusion, elevate transparency, center on good governance, on robust civil societies, on a free press, build norms that help to inculcate respect for human rights and democracy. And we do that not simply because those are moral goods, although we believe they are, but because they are key enablers for broad-based, inclusive, and sustainable growth. They are, in a very real sense, our secret sauce when it comes to assuring that projects provide a return on investment and do so for those most in need. It may not always be the easiest model to work with. We acknowledge that. But there is a great wealth of empirical data that suggests that it is the most successful model for sustainable development over time. And that is especially so compared to other development models that might deliver short-term results, but tend over time to falter, often leaving behind debt, local displacement, and environmental devastation. Our model also builds on decades-long history of being responsive to our partners' needs and supporting their efforts to achieve their own development priorities and self-determination. And as I offered, our results demonstrate that our model can be successful. 11 of our top 15 trading partners today, like the Republic of Korea, were once recipients of aid from the United States. 17 recipients of USAID assistance have become donors in their own right. We build strong societies. We work with partners on their own paths to success. And we also want our partners to know that USAID assistance does not need to be repaid. They're not loans. USAID seeks to offer emerging economies of the future a trusted development model, one rooted not in debt and dependence, but in mutually beneficial economic integration, inclusivity, locally led solutions, and the democratic values that can help transform our shared planet for the better. We do not seek to weaponize our development assistance for our own benefit or to leverage it for our own narrow goals. Rather, we pursue development diplomacy to provide public goods and to strengthen the global commons. I might add that we don't claim to have all the right answers, and we certainly don't claim to have never made mistakes. Crises abroad and at home constantly prompt us to ask probing questions about how we might help live up to our own ideals. Our commitment is to help our partners do the same. As partners, we can and we must push one another as equals to live up to our full potential and our highest ideals and aspirations. When we do so, we are all better equipped to address some of the most pressing challenges of our time. And in that context, the question we ask ourselves and the questions we ask of our partners in the Global South and the global majority is, how can we support the Global South individually and collectively to succeed and drive its own destiny? Such an outcome, we believe, will contribute to a world consistent with our interests and values and the affirmative development agenda that we seek to promote. This complements our longstanding practice that emphasizes overall sustainability, from financial prosperity to social well-being to a healthy environment. And while we may have limited ability to change the decisions that are made in Beijing on any given day that intersect in detrimental ways with the prosperity, environmental sustainability, well-being, and developmental potential of the global majority, we can work alongside our partners and our allies to help shape the environment in which the PRC operates. USAID can help promote sustainable development reforms that chart a vision for the world in which we all want to live. We work with the private sector to unleash economic growth and our partners' potential. We work with local communities to meet their needs as they define them. We work with international coordinating mechanisms and international institutions that extend resources and technical expertise. We ensure that our work is complementary and respects existing regional architecture. And we know that our grants-based assistance can go further when it is put together with public and private investments. We can do all that, elevating our contributions, doubling down on our commitments, and appealing to the best parts of our rooted history around the globe, recognizing that for countries to flourish on their own development paths, each nation should be able to choose its own way forward, including how they manage their resources and with whom they partner. And that it is on us, not our partners, to demonstrate our own value in this development partnership. We offer our development partners to that end in the Global South and the global majority, a development model that celebrates listening to and learning from them, understanding their concerns, and finding a pathway forward together. And so across the globe, USAID seeks to show countries the possibilities of a cooperative, inclusive, and to use Administrator Power's phrase, a big-hearted development model. A model that is rooted in cooperation, in economic trade and integration, and in connectivity, not debt traps or never-ending foreign assistance dependence. That is how we continue our development leadership in the future, and that is how we show our values. In so doing, we firmly believe that together we will build a free, open, and inclusive architecture for the balance of the 21st century, do so in partnership with the Global South, with the global majority, and do so in a more sustainable way that creates prosperity and security for all. So let me again extend my gratitude to the Atlantic Council, to Mr. Schulman, and to all of you who have joined us today in the room and online for generously providing me this opportunity to share some thoughts. And I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Michael. That was really a fantastic and comprehensive kind of vision you were giving us of what USAID does generally, but then also how it relates to what we see China doing in the Global South. You focus understandably on what USAID is doing and how that fits into the U.S. drive to kind of support broad-based and sustainable global development, to support other countries reaching their goals and their own vision. But I would want to kind of bring in the China piece again and kind of ask, from your perspective, as someone who's looked at China, looked at Asia for a long time, what do you think is driving Beijing's increased attention to the Global South, to the developing world, which we've talked about a lot over the last day and a half? And how does this renewed focus on the developing world shape the U.S. approach to development, if at all?
It's a great question, and I'm going to disappoint you to some degree because I'm not going to speculate on motivations or intentions in Beijing. I think some of them are probably understandable, some perhaps far less so. But what really concerns us is not the motivations, but its behavior, and how PRC behavior, particularly when it drives development outcomes that are not to the benefit of the countries in which the PRC is working. Yep. That's where our concern is, and that is the emphasis, as I think I offered, on our being able to provide a better model. So for us, frankly, the interest really isn't in countering the PRC per se, and it's certainly not in mirror imaging or modeling parts of their behavior that we consider to be problematic. Our interest is in seeking to foster the international institutions, the norms, the behavior that we think, based on the observations that we have. We don't claim to have all the answers, but the observations that we have about what can contribute to and constitute a healthy, prosperous society, how we then can partner to drive good development outcomes for the global majority, and to help work with our partners in the Global South as they seek prosperity, as they seek a more secure order.
Yes, and I think you speak about focusing on China's actions and the impact that they have in developing countries around the world. I think that's really important to zero in on. And I, having worked at the International Republican Institute and having worked with USAID quite a bit at that time, did see a lot of ways in which the growth and development initiatives led by the United States in the developing world really could have an impact in terms of bolstering resilience to some of the negative effects that could come with engaging with China. So I'm just curious, if you could zero in a little bit in terms of your thinking on what the U.S. is doing in terms of enhancing local representation, bolstering transparency, bolstering civil society. What has been, in your experience, the most effective type of programming that does help to bolster that resilience? Because as we've talked about, and as you know, countries are going to, and in many ways should continue to engage China and get the benefits from that. But what can we be doing, what can USAID in particular be doing to ensure that as they do so, their democratic institutions and rights are protected?
Yeah, no, look, I think that's an incredibly important question. And I think for us, the first gate that we go through is in recognizing that we need to be developing locally led solutions. And Administrator Power, as I know you know, has put a huge emphasis, and rightly so, on our what we term our localization initiative. Local communities, the countries in which we're partnering in the Global South, they know their problems and they know their solutions much better than we do. The question for us is, how do we slot in to their conceptualization of what the development pathway needs to look like in a way that can be catalytic as we help them to co-design, co-develop development initiatives, making sure that the stakeholders at the local level have the biggest voice in that process. And to that end, I'm sort of backing my way up to your question. We have found that where we can help support strong and vibrant civil society, free and independent journalism, anti-corruption initiatives, greater transparency, that all of those things are the critical enablers that allow for economic growth to flourish and to be sustained over time. It's not about dropping a bridge or a highway on somebody. That sort of gives you the sugar high of a quick hit to your GDP over 3 or 4 years, and then that falls off, right? It's empty calories, as my nutritionist would and does tell me. Right? This is about what the full meal needs to look like, so that you build all of the muscles that are needed for healthy, vibrant, strong, and resilient societies.
Uh, Building on that, we talked a fair amount this morning in our panel on technology issues, as well as over the last day and a half, looking at different regions about what China's doing in terms of digital ecosystems, right? And in terms of funding, infrastructure, and services that might give China undue influence over countries, those ecosystems, or undermine the security of their ICT backbones, these kinds of things. I know USAID has been focused on digital development and helping to some extent, kind of respond to China's digital Silk Road related efforts. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to that digital side of the work that USAID is doing and how it relates to China, but also just to helping these countries reach their visions.
Yeah, look, I would offer more broadly than concerns about the PRC as we think about what will be driving economic growth and prosperity for the balance of the 21st century. It is about this whole new emergent suite of technologies in the digital space, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's AI, whether it's 5G, soon to be 6G, right? I mean, that is where the action is at. And so for any and every country that is looking to build a more prosperous future for itself, a focus on developing, designing, and implementing, a resilient, secure telecommunications infrastructure and a resilient and secure digital ecosystem is absolutely critical and absolutely key. We have been deeply involved both in Asia and elsewhere in looking to promote open radio access network, for example, both as a way to create that open, inclusive, but also safe and secure digital architecture, and to provide digital upskilling training for our partners in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, and elsewhere to help drive and generate jobs. We have worked on undersea marine cables in the Pacific to make sure that our Pacific Island friends have access to safe and reliable and secure internet connections, and frankly to help overcome some of the market resistance that small countries with small economies may face when it comes to getting the private sector, which ultimately is the real driver for sustainable economic growth, into the game, right? Some of the work that we do along with our other partners across the U.S. government in de-risking, in helping to create the predicates for bankable deals is absolutely crucial for our partners. So there's a huge opportunity, and we are trying to throw ourselves in there, with all of our body, all of our heart, and all of our mind.
That's great. You touched a little bit in your remarks on kind of what I think maybe would term kind of the twin mission that USAID has, which is of course driving development results, but as you also mentioned, and people maybe sometimes don't think of this as much, as advancing U.S. national security interests, right? Particularly, and so I guess my question is, and you've hinted at this a little bit, particularly in the China context, is there a tension there that makes it difficult sometimes in engaging with some of our partners where we are very much looking to bolster their own visions, to help them down their own development paths, but we are also, through USAID and through other agencies, very kind of not hiding the fact that this is part of, trying to reach U.S. foreign policy and strategic goals.
I guess I would offer that there's an apparent tension there, but not necessarily a real one, because from our perspective, the best answer to a bad model for development is a good model for development, and we have a good model for development, and anything and everything that we can do that helps to create, and we're sort of repeating the verbiage here, but stable, resilient societies that helps to drive economic growth and prosperity, that helps to meet, helps local communities as they meet their health, their education, needs. All of that creates the sort of international community that we believe is consistent with the sort of world that we want to create, because it's consonant with U.S. interests and U.S. values. So the more that we can do that, and that's exactly what we would do whether or not the PRC existed, the better off we think our partners will be, and the better off the world will be. But it's incumbent upon us to demonstrate that the model that we think is the better model is in fact the better model, and it's incumbent upon us to stand up and to perform and to deliver with our partners, not to or not at them, but with them, tangible, concrete, and visible demonstrations of success, so that they appreciate that our model delivers, that democracy delivers, and that's what we seek to do.
And you mentioned in your comments as well that we seek to work with our allies as well, right? In terms of the other countries that have a similar vision for the same sort of democratic model that we think works. Can you speak a little bit to the extent to which we are already working with some of those allies in putting forward some of this development assistance, working with them on development finance, working with them on a range of different topics where we might perhaps have different comparative advantages that we could bring to bear in different countries, these sorts of things to really help our partners in the developing world reach their own goals?
Yeah, no, look, we fully believe that given the scope, the scale, the urgency of some of the challenges that we face in the international system today, some of the challenges that we face with climate change, for example, that we need to be doing this work with our allies, with our partners, with other like-mindeds. This is a team game, and it requires all of the resources that all of us can bring to bear if we're going to be successful. And moreover, given our aspirations for building a resilient international community, we want to do this with our allies and partners, right? The process is part of the product in a real in a real and significant way. And we also recognize that while there may be things, as you offer that comparative advantage bumper sticker, which is one that we believe in, right? There may be things where we have relationships or unique expertise and experience. There are relationships, there's expertise or experiences that our partners have where they may be better positioned to be able to do the work. And in that case, in those cases, we want them to do the work. So we are in deep conversations, and not just conversations, but we're in deep cooperative partnerships with others in the Indo-Pacific, Japan, Korea, Australia, Taiwan, as well as others around the world, including our European Union friends and partners. We worked, we talked a little bit earlier about digital space. We worked closely with Australia for the digital spur cable for Palau, for example, where we were each able to bring to the table resources and experience that helped to create the partnership that was successful. So we are constantly looking to deepen those conversations and deepen those partnerships.
That's great, thank you. Well, moving from coordination with allies in our last minute here to a question about coordination within the U.S. government, which is
always perfect.
always perfect across all types of issues. But I would imagine that dealing with a massive subject like how does the United States do even better to up our game in terms of engagement across this ridiculous concept we're using here of the global South, right? Most of the world. What would you say is the state of the ability of the U.S. government across USAID and state and DFC and EXIM and all these different agencies that need to be coordinating to really make sure that our approach is honed, is prioritizing where we should be putting scarce resources and attention? Is there more that could be done there, or do you feel like we're going in the right direction?
Both. I mean, there's definitely more that can be done by way of closer and better coordination, and you only listed a handful of the many agencies and departments that are involved in this. But I will say that this administration has done a very effective job at creating that mythical whole of government approach, drawing across all of the instruments of our national security and foreign policy, bureaucracy, to really focus down in a way that we intend to be enduring and sustainable and with a certainty of trajectory on the Indo-Pacific strategy, specifically for my bureau, but more broadly as we're engaged in pursuing our development diplomacy goals around the world.
Great. Well, that's a great way to end. Thanks again for sharing your expertise, your insights, and the perspective of USAID, particularly right before you jump on a plane to Asia. So
Well,
join
thank
me
you.
in thanking Mr. Schiffer.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I'd ask everyone to just stay in your seats while we transition to our next panel. Thank you.